So look, over the last 3 years, I basically disappeared and grew my agency to a run rate of about $6.5 to $7 million a year. And here are the core things that I've learned. I've got my list in front of me. I just want to sit down super raw and sort of share this with you today. You really just want to treat your whole business, your whole company just like a sales function. You know, most people treat their closers, their setters as the sales team. I started treating everybody in my team. My whole company is a sales function. The whole team is a sales team. My service delivery team are sales team members. Customer service are in the sales team. They're not quote unquote in the sales team, but that's the mindset that I have. Every person in the business is in a sales team because we're constantly selling, right? And honestly, this 10x the revenue of the company. So yes, obviously your setters, your closers are in the sales team. Their job is to bring on business, of course, right? There's nothing revolutionary there. It's common sense. But most people stop at that. What I realize is there's two key factors of success in an agency. You basically, the amount of customers you bring on and your LTV, okay? That's your revenue ceiling. If you bring on 10 customers a month and your LTV is 10K, your revenue ceiling becomes 100K a month, okay? Really simple maths. So the amount of customers you bring on every month is determined by your sales team. Okay, in terms of new customers. Your LTV is made up by your retention, okay, and your ascension. So basically, if you can get somebody who's doing Facebook ads, add them on Google, add them on email, that customer might triple what they pay you every single month. That increases your LTV. Your LTV is also increased by your retention. Retention is made up by obviously having a fantastic service and delivering on what you promised, but retention could also be made up in those times where you have a client where there's an issue and they could potentially leave, but now you have somebody in your team that can jump on and save that customer, solve the problem, change the account manager, maybe identify what the core issue is, come up with a solution and save it. So it's about jumping on those clients that are actively telling you, hey, we're parting ways, and jumping on and saving those customers, okay? Which technically, if you had a media buyer or account manager or a customer success manager, they may not do by default. Okay, so I realized, what is all of this? All of this is just sales, right? To get customers to go from one platform to another platform, you know, so to go from Facebook to add on Google as well, that requires sales. That requires booking in a call to discuss and selling them on that. It also, or even just selling it on the DMs, but it requires somebody with a sales experience to do that. Jumping on, identifying why a client is unhappy, solving that problem, and selling them on staying is sales. Delivering a fantastic service and building a fantastic rapport so they go nowhere else to a certain degree is sales. It is sales, right? So I started treating my whole company like a sales function, and I did a few core things here. Number one, I incentivized my delivery team based off of retention. So we implemented commissions based off of how long they retain customers. We also implemented commission for upsells. So if they got upsells, they then got commission. So if they set the appointments for reset the appointments for our closers, they got commission on that. We also gave commission on referrals, so they were incentivized. And by the way, all training was developed for the team at this point. We then, recently implemented an account management role. So now it goes from sales to an account manager who does the onboarding, and then they then go to the media buyer or like the service delivery manager, the service manager. That account manager is there as a person to build a fantastic rapport, to do check-ins after 7, 14, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90, 105, 120 days, every sort of 2 weeks, they check in. How's everything going? Are there any activation points to upsell? Are they not happy? So we need to jump on and solve it, come up with a plan. That's a salesperson, by the way, in that account management role. Their job is to solely retain and ascend, to get referrals. Once I started understanding that the whole revenue ceiling of the business, okay, so how much we're going to grow is literally made up by how many customers we bring on every month, and then what the LTV is. And the LTV is made up by how much we charge them, how long we retain them, and how quickly or how often we can basically ascend them, how much money we can get them to spend with us. I realized, heck, why don't I just make my whole company a sales function? And yes, we still focus on delivering a fantastic service. We still have our service managers, our service team members that come in and run the ads and offer that fantastic service. They get the results. But equally alongside that, we have our account managers, and then we still incentivize our service members on the metric that we care about, which is retention in that regard. So that had a huge impact. So again, the key thing for you here is to understand that your business is essentially made up by how many customers you can get and your LTV. That becomes your revenue ceiling. So you either increase the amount of customers you get or you increase your LTV. And if you do that, you simply make more money. And it's kind of crazy when you actually look at the levers that you can pull. Like if I talk about an agency, let's say I bring on 10 customers a month and my LTV is 10k, but I can then get that LTV up to 20k by increasing retention and increasing my ascension percentage. By still bringing on those 10 customers, my revenue ceiling is now 200k a month. That's double the size of the business with the same amount of customers. Now what happens if I double my LTV and double the amount of clients I bring on? Well, then that becomes a 400k a month revenue ceiling. So do you see how by just doubling those two metrics, amount of clients we bring on and LTV, we quadruple the revenue ceiling? Like, is that not mental? Like, so stop overcomplicating business. It's like implementing this like little Zapier change or button color on your website, I'm sorry, is not going to make a difference. You just simplify it down, focus on those two core metrics, and it will change your business. Okay, so that's a cool thing. The other thing I want to discuss as well is, in the title of this video, like I disappeared for 3 years. So on to point 3, I disappeared. Like I literally disappeared. Go on my YouTube channel and see how many videos I uploaded over the space of like 2 years. It was like a handful of videos just to make sure that the channel did not absolutely die. And yeah, I mean, the reality is, you hear I'm not revolutionary in the fact that I'm going to speak about focusing on one thing, but I learned this the hard way. I think by default as an entrepreneur, we want to take over the world. We want to build these empires, and we're like excited little dogs, right? We run around at the next opportunity, but it's just scatty and immature, and it's not how you build a successful company. I think over time, as I spoke about, there's the hard work stage, grind in the beginning, and then there's that stage of leverage. When you get to that stage of leverage, yes, you can look at expanding the empire, but you need to maximize out that first opportunity first. And the only way you're going to get there is by absolutely focusing all of your energy. And the best way that sort of keeps me up at night, to re-dial me in at that, is I just think, if I've got a competitor that's running an agency, and let's say I'm splitting my focus in 3 directions. I've got business 1, which is the agency, opportunity 2, and then opportunity 3, whatever they may be. And I'm giving 30% of my energy to opportunity A, 30% to B, and 30% to C. But I've got a competitor that's giving 100% energy over to opportunity A over here. He's got a 3 times, or he or she's got a 3 times better chance of success and absolutely kicking my ass than I have, okay? So, and by the way, when I say energy, like I said, I'm not speaking about hours worked. It's also about, being smart with that time. But again, if you're putting 100% of all of your ideas, your focus, not just your time, but your time of mental clarity, your time of smart thinking into that business, you're going to get crushed by somebody who's going to put 100% effort in if you don't. And again, I learned this the hard way in the beginning of my journey, and then really over the last 3 years as I dialed in, it's like I can't speak of many agency owners that are pulling the numbers that we're pulling on our agency. Like I said, we're on a run rate for about 6.7. As of last month, we're on track to do about 6.7 million this year. It's probably going to be more than that. We're in January. January's notoriously a slower month for us. So, if we can be on a run rate of 6.7 million a year for cash collected in our company in a January, what's that going to be at the end of the year? I'm hoping we can scale to 10 million this year. I think there's very few people in this space that have grown an agency to that level, especially like in our size that actually work with small to medium businesses. Like we don't work with your Coca-Colas or your Nikes. We still work with small to medium businesses, 6, 7, and the occasional 8-figure company. We don't work with massive businesses. Our average retainer is about £2,500 a month. So it's not like a crazy size agency. I just say that to say I wouldn't have been able. It's because it's bloody hard. Like it's been difficult, brutal to grow. And I look back now and I feel like I've got the roadmap. But what's interesting is I couldn't have done that if I wasn't 100% focused and dialed in on that one thing. If I was still trying to build my personal brand at the time, if I was still trying to launch an e-com business or do this, that, and go around the world speaking at events, it's just realistically, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So the lesson for you is just dial in, focus on that one thing, because if not, your competitor will, just like I've done, and they'll absolutely destroy you. You know, the agency space has never been more competitive. The coaching space has never been more competitive. Don't dilute. Okay, when you get to a point of leverage, I'm not saying you can't ever do that. Okay, just hibernate for a bit. When you get to a point where you have leverage, and you'll know when that'll be. You start having a leadership team. You start waking up and sitting down at your desk and thinking, God, like, what am I actually going to do today? Because things seem to be running. When you get to that stage, you can start to look at diversifying. Okay, but you can't do that until you get to that stage. And another thing to think about is another analogy, just to leave you on this sort of the disappearing act segment of this video. You know, if you've got 10 inches of energy, okay, just to make it real size here, if you've got 10 inches of energy and you're putting them in 10 directions, you're going to make 1 inch of progress in 10 directions. If you put all of that into one direction, you've made 10x the progress in the one direction. You see? Okay, so it's all about where you focus your energy there. So the next thing here, which is going to be really, really key. I've got a separate video coming on this topic, by the way. But implementing a done with you offering was also absolute game changer for us. So what we realized is we were, obviously we have a done for you offering where we run our Facebook ads, Google ads, things like that for our clients. And we qualify based off of ad spend and revenues, but we're having loads of applications, loads of referrals, loads of people that were coming through to work with us that because they didn't hit either the revenue or ad spend target, we were basically just disqualifying them. And we were basically redirecting them onto a nurture sequence where every now and again they'd get hit with nurture content, and we were sort of fingers crossed that when you're qualified in the future, come back to work with us. But realistically, by the time that happened, they'd already decided to go and work with someone else that didn't qualify them out. They worked with another freelancer, another contractor, another agency that were happy to take them on. And in the odd chance they eventually did grow their business to a point where they could work with us, we absolutely were not top of mind just because of some crappy nurture email sequence. Like, we did convert some back, but it was hardly gangbusters, right? So what did we decide to do? We decided to implement a done with you offering, which we framed it as a prep plan. So what we said to people was, anybody that came through that we would have originally disqualified, we put them into a triage call. They jumped on a triage call to see if they were still financially qualified. But we then positioned like, hey, we have an opportunity to work with you, done with you, as a prep plan. So it's like positioned as like, this is the preparation to get you onto the main offering that you want. And we will work with you, done with you. So we won't click the buttons and do it for you, but we'll basically teach you everything you need to know to do it yourself. We'll help you solve all these problems, remove the confusion so you can initially do this yourself to get to a point where you will be qualified, and then we'll just ascend you and work with you on the done for you offering. That was a game changer for us. We honestly pretty much overnight added 7 figures to our company by implementing that off of a new additional traffic. So it's the same people that were coming through to the offer before, but we now implemented a downsell, And what's crazy is not only did we capitalize on that revenue, but from the people that you actually get to the stage, for us it was revenue and ad spend. So once we got them to the stage where they would have been qualified on revenue and ad spend, the ascension percentage was almost 100%. So we were then recharging them again in full. So some instances we'd have people come on, pay for our done with you offering, 30 days later be ready to ascend, and they'd pay for another 3 months in full for the contracted term, again in addition to what they already paid. So we'd actually made double the revenue than we would have if they even sold them on done for you in the first place. So we're making more money, and we were capitalizing on the leaky bucket, which was absolutely crazy. And essentially all we did is we did the same thing that we would have done for you, but we just told them how to do it instead of us doing it. Really, really, really simple. And we had some leverage activities on there, like we built a course out and we built out some group coaching questions, but they're leveraged in the sense that it doesn't matter if there's like 2 people in there or 200 people, it's still the same level of work every week. That was a game changer for us. So if you're not doing that right now and you've got a done for you offering, then absolute 10 out of 10 recommendation. You'll be an idiot if you do not do that, okay? So there you go, implement a done with you offering into your business. Final one I will leave you on here. You need to hire a 10 out of 10 operator for your business, or you need to become that 10 out of 10 operator. When I mean operator, what do I mean? I mean somebody that makes sure that all of the day-to-day runs. Now, for me, that's not my want as an entrepreneur. I know my area of expertise is in strategy. It's in knowing what to do to take us to the next stage, to drive the business forward, to make the right decisions. More time that I can spend strategizing, thinking, and making sure we are heading in the right direction is a great use of my time. However, operating the business on a day-to-day is a different skill set, but equally important, because if you're only focused on the future, making those high leverage decisions, what's happening on the day-to-day? What are the standards of the company? Who are making sure that KPIs are being hit, mistakes aren't being made? Who are ensuring that your talent, that your great talent are retaining and your poor talent are getting worked out the door? You know, who's ensuring that your customers are actually getting the experience that they paid for? Who's ensuring that your sales team are closing at their KPIs and the close percentages? Who's making sure that all of that's happening? You know, a 10 out of 10 operator will absolutely change your life as you scale, you know, or, you know, even if you just hire just a really great manager in a management position to oversee, to do one-to-ones, to do all of that good stuff, it's going to absolutely change your life. And I think when you speak about leverage and getting to a point of leverage, the point for me, like the point of change where I went from grind Brad, like pure just, it's all about hard work, to realizing actually I'm working hard. Like I had to really rewire my brain and be like, hang on a minute here, whoa, take a step back. You're actually doing more harm than good working, like just taking action. Like if you still want to work 14 hours a day, fine, but like maybe more of that should be thinking time. Like the realization I had when I implemented a good leader that could actually give me that breakthrough and get me to that point of leverage. It was just an absolute game changer. But for you, that would be hiring a leader in your business and hiring a really, really good operator, somebody that can come in and set the standards and ensure that everything, you know, the way I see it is like, if you're pushing the business forward, who's making sure that the mess you're leaving behind you is not mess? It's absolutely all on point. You've got excellence in the company. How do you make sure that's happening? Well, that's going to happen by having a good operator in the company. Now, look, I'm really fortunate. You know, I've got two leaders in my business. I've got Jack, who's my head of operations. He heads up all of our service team. And then I've basically got my head of sales, who is Cayman, who heads up basically all of the new business side of the company. Okay, he oversees the setters, he oversees the closers, and then I've got Jack, who oversees basically all of the delivery team and basically anything that relates to operations within the company. Those two people ensure that I can do my best work, and I can ensure I've got more thinking time to make sure that we are heading in the right direction. Because remember the analogy I gave before about having the 10 inches of energy and going in different directions? Well, the problem is it's really important, first of all, as a leader, to make sure you're set off in the right course. So I could rush into a decision, right? I could just be, right, hustle. Let's make a decision. I think we should do this thing, okay? And we start moving in this direction. And then we realize that's not the best direction. So we stop, and then we rush into another decision. We go over here, then we stop because it's not the right. And then we rush again. Okay, whereas if I just took an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a day, a week to think, hang on, let's just make sure we're making a rational decision on where we're heading. Let's pause for a second. Okay, a week passes, no rush into action. We're being strategic here. And we think, okay, this 100%, I've been rational, I've weighed up all the pros, I've weighed up all the cons. This is the direction that we're going, guys. And then guess what? We set off the course, but we're in the right direction. And yes, we might have taken a few days, a week to ensure that's the right direction. I'm making that decision, you know, I'm taking the time to make that decision. I can be calmer, I can be more rational when I've got two leaders in my company, or in your instance, maybe one leader in your company, ensuring that you have the time to do that. You have the time to think clearly and to be rational, all right? So as soon as you start getting to 5 to 10 plus people in your team, you really, unless you want to be that operator, which, you know, maybe can work, but if you do that, you might need somebody else to be sort of the visionary of the business or the strategist of the business. I would really recommend it, okay? And just as a side note to this, you basically want to build out in the company KPIs for every single role, okay? Clear roles and responsibilities for every single role. And you basically want to give every single role one core metric. Like, they'll have multiple KPIs, but they want a North Star golden metric. So for your service delivery team, that's going to be retention for the most part. For your sales team, that might be cash per call or close percentage. Your setters, that might be, again, cash per booked call. That might also be, their set percentage, sharp rate of those sets. Like, you pick the number, and then you have a good operator that ensures that everybody within their department is getting trained, developed to hit that. If they're not hitting it, and if they're hitting it, make sure you're doing everything you can to retain them in the business. If you do that, there's obviously so much more I want to share with you about really aggressively scaling over the last few years. But those are some of the core high leverage lessons that I learned when I disappeared for basically 1,000 days and scaled this agency, that hopefully you can implement yourself. If you have any questions, by the way, hit me up on Instagram, drop me a DM, hope you enjoyed.